Hey guys, we're entering in Unit 3 now, where we're going to be talking about the role of macromolecules and how they basically create living things. You need to also know the levels of organization, beginning with organism and ending with biosphere. And at the end of this, you should be able to tell examples of what each macromolecules are. All right. Another name for macromolecule is organic molecules, so if you see those, it's talking about the same thing. And a little bit of vocabulary here. A macromolecule is a large molecule. Micro is small, so obviously macro will be big. Poly means many, so a polymer is large molecules made up of many small molecules. All right. So, biological organization. All right. Start at the smallest. You'd start down here at the very bottom, which would be molecules right here. Cells. So a bunch of molecules make up a cell. Cell is the smallest function of life, so that's what we're going to start with in biology, since bio is the study of life. All right. A bunch of cells is tissues or organs, which create an organ system. All right, and a bunch of organ systems in one person or thing is an organism, which is a living thing. A bunch of organisms makes a population. A bunch of populations living together makes a community, and a community surrounded by non-living things is an ecosystem, and the part of the earth that contains all ecosystems is a biosphere. Okay, so cells are the smallest. Groups of cells make tissues or organ systems, like your nervous tissue makes a brain, which then make your nervous system. All right, an organism is an individual living thing. Population is a group of organisms. Community is a bunch of populations living together. Ecosystem again larger, and then the largest is biosphere. All right, next we have 4 types of macromolecules that you've got to know: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. And each page will go over what each one of them are. What you need to focus on is what are they made up of, and what is an example of each one. Again, you got to remember these through the whole thing of bio, because this makes up life. All of these 4 things make up every living thing. All right, so carbohydrates. These are the main source of energy. They're made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, so that's why they're called carbohydrates. Examples are starches, glucose, sugar, and cellulose. I would pay close attention to sugar and starches, and glucose being your example. All right, and here's some pictures. You get a lot of carbohydrates with bread. Starches would be like potatoes. What we got down here are long-distance runners, because runners that run for a long period of time need a lot of energy stored. So this is our main source of stored energy in a carbohydrate. So that's why these people will go out the night before and eat a bunch of pasta before their big run the next morning. Okay, simple sugars are called monosaccharides, mono being 1. 2 simple sugars is a disaccharide. Table sugar, or sucrose, is also a disaccharide, and many simple sugars is called a polysaccharide. So again, we're seeing our prefixes here. You need to know that saccharide, and the reason why it's on this page is because, again, carbohydrates are sugars. Next are lipids. These are insoluble in water because they are nonpolar. What's important about that? Lipids don't dissolve in water. That's what that means. All right, oil and water don't mix. Lipids are used by cells for energy storage and insulation. All right, and here's some things that have lipids in it. They're made up of fatty acids. All right, so when you think about these, you can think about anything greasy, anything oily. So French fries, potato chips, oil. Again, in this right bottom picture, you see oil and water do not mix. All right, so you need to know lipids are there for insulation, all right, which is basically what helps us keep warm. Think about a bear eating a bunch of things before winter to insulate themselves throughout the winter. They eat a lot of fatty foods. And again, they're made up of fatty acids. Next is proteins. And proteins we heard a lot of before. They provide structure for tissues and organs. You think building muscle, that's why people drink protein or have protein shakes or eat protein bars to try to build that muscle up. They are made of amino acids, so you need to know that a bunch of amino acids make up protein. And here's some pictures of proteins, and examples are enzymes, which you need to definitely make sure you remember that. We'll go over enzymes in the next unit or the next section of this unit. Hair is made up of protein. If you don't eat meat, then you have to supplement your diet with a bunch of beans, because if you don't eat beans, you're not going to have enough protein. You won't grow hair. Obviously, meat and muscle is formed from this, milk, etc. So all that has protein. And last but not least is nucleic acids. These store cellular information in the form of a code. So their function is they store information, genetic information in general. They're made up of nucleotides, which have 3 parts: sugar, phosphate, and a nitrogen base. And the examples are DNA and RNA. And if you notice, the NA in each one of these would stand for, up here, the nucleic acid. So this is important down here. In the background is a picture of DNA. Y'all will see that later on. I'd rather you write genetic right here instead of cellular, because that's how we pass on things to our children and our family. Alright, so those are the 4 things, 4 macromolecules that make up all bit of life. Make sure you know each one, their function, and also an example of each. And make sure you know the biological organization. Start with a cell and go all the way up to the biosphere.